Morning.
closer so I can sit down, so I can see. Hey, Ryan. Hi, Josh. How are you?
We're doing this part of that.
Good afternoon. I gotta see what I shut off for. Did you get that extra? Oh, okay. Where were you?
No, she has to stay.
All right, why do I get this?
Okay, wait, I want her to be nice to us.
Yeah. Well, the last one I was there for over an hour, so I'm not gonna.
Cause you have for your agenda item to come up?
Well, yeah, they had a couple things before me that were really time consuming, so.
I tried to just put the easy stuff before you, so.
Oh, yeah, no worries.
We'll call this meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
For the record, I'd like to thank Tom Kaproth for 47 years of his service on the fire department.
Okay. At this time, we will recess the regular city council meeting, 5:32, to conduct a public hearing on the annual liquor license renewals and temporary events as listed on the city council agenda. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak for or against this matter? Is there anyone present who wishes to speak for or against this matter? Is there anyone present who wishes to speak for or against this matter? Okay, at 5:33, we will reconvene the regular city council meeting. And I'd like to get a motion approving the liquor licenses as presented on the council agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We'll now move on to the tobacco licenses. There's no public hearing required for these, so I would like to get a motion to approve the tobacco licenses as listed on the city council agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We will now have the 2020 audit report. Schneller and Wenner.
All right, so I am going to be going over this report, which is also up there. Essentially what this is, it's a shortened version of the 90-page larger reports in front of you. So I try to, hit the most important things, the things that we're required to report to you all on, and we'll try to make it as quick as possible. This very first page, we summarize basically what we do in our audit. So we obtain the city's records, do a number of inquiries, procedures, and testing. And really after all that, we're just ultimately looking to issue an opinion. So for this city, we're issuing an unmodified or clean opinion. That's the opinion you want to be issued. It means no significant issues or errors or misstatements arose as a result of our procedures. Alright, and then here we just note a few other things that we're required to report to you all on. So overall, the audit went smoothly. We noted nothing unusual in our transaction review, no unusual accounting policies or treatments. And then the only estimates that we note are those estimates, actuarial estimates that go into calculating the PERA net pension liability and then the fire relief net pension asset. So that's the same as in the past and really reported by most cities in the state of Minnesota. Alright, so as far as internal controls go, we report segregation of duties and financial statement prep as the only findings. That's the same as in the past. We posted no material audit adjustments, so we don't report a finding for that. And then other than that, we also note here, as you might recall, we look at various areas of Minnesota legal compliance, and after that review, we had no findings related to that, so that all went well as well. Taking a look at the numbers, I'll start off with the general fund, which had about a $221,000 increase in fund balance, with an ending fund balance of $3,035,750. So we'll take a look at the details of that activity over the next few pages. Starting off with that fund balance that I just talked about. So we take a look each year at that fund balance, that unassigned portion, and that's considered the spendable portion basically of the general fund balance. So we take a look at that as a percent of budgeted expenditures. So at 12/31/20, that sat at just over 173%, about a 21% increase from 2019. The city has a policy for that to sit at between 50 to 65%, so obviously well above. You know, you don't want to get too close to that 65% range, but still sitting relatively healthy there. All right, so revenues. This is, you know, some more detail as far as the general fund revenues, where they kind of sit and how they compare to 2019. The most significant changes from 2019 to 2020 we're seen in property taxes and intergovernmental revenues. So property taxes increased by about 40,000, and then intergovernmental by about 242,000. Intergovernmental increase primarily due to that $205,000 in coronavirus relief funds that the city received during 2020, and then about a $43,000 increase in local government aid, which is received from the state. Other than that, licenses and permits decreased about 50,000 due to decreases in building permit activity and then some rental fee decreases. Any questions on the revenues items? All right.
Looking good.
Move on to expenditures. On the expenditure side, most significant changes from 2019 to 2020 we're seen in general government and capital outlay. So a lot of that is just due to the spending of those coronavirus relief fund dollars. So that money coming in and then that money going out on the expenditure side. Right, and then cash for the general fund has been gradually increasing for the past few years. At 12/31/20, it sat at about $2.85 million for the general fund. All right, taking a look at some of the other governmental funds for the city. So the fire service fund had a decrease in fund balance of about $617,000 with an ending balance of just over 226,000. Majority of the decrease was due to the fire truck purchase that occurred in 2020. Other notable activity includes some various gear purchases, and then part of that was partially funded by a $135,000 FEMA grant there, so there was some governmental funding that came in there. EDA fund really just consists of loan receipts, and that just had an ending fund balance of close to 66,000. And then the 2008 improvement bond fund had an increase of about 385,000. Couple things we don't reflect in that 2008 column there that refunding bond activity that came through. That was that 2020 debt that was issued and refunded the 2011 and 2012 or 2008. And that's not reflected here, of course. And then the 2018 Capital Improvement Fund, that had just a bit of residual activity from the 2018 road project. Other activity in there is just the interest payments on the 2018 debt. So next year, that fund will actually be renamed as a debt service fund, because that's the only activity that's going to flow through there in the future, is just those payments on that 2018 debt. Let's see, other than that, that non-major governmental column, that's just all the other activity of the other funds of the city, except for the water and sewer funds. So most notable item there, I took a look at those. Basically the decrease in activity for the swimming pool fund due to the pool being closed. Other than that, nothing too significant changes from 2019 or even prior years. Cash for those funds, so we kind of split this out a bit differently than that last page. We look at debt service, capital project, and then special revenue funds as a whole. And then we have that fire service fund there separately. Fire service fund, obviously significant decrease in cash due to some capital purchases in 2020. Otherwise, if you look at the cash in those other funds, they sat pretty relatively the same. All right, and then now the water and sewer fund, we'll go over these briefly. So the water fund had an increase in net position of about $217,000 with an ending net position of just under $3.8 million. Most notable activity here is increase in charges for services of about $32,000. That's due to rate increases that occurred for 2020, and overall increase in expense due to some repairs that were done, notably the water tower repairs that were done. Other than that, you'll see that non-operating revenues for 2019, that had some pretty significant activity there. Just wanted to note that that was the completion of the 2018 street improvement project, and then we capitalized those items there. So that's what that big increase there was, and of course we didn't see that in 2020. Sewer fund, slight decrease in net position of about $28,000, ending net position of $4.45 million. Most notable activity includes, an increase in charges for services, much like the water fund, due to rate increases, as well as increase in expensive. A lot of that's the I&I study costs, and then wastewater expansion costs that occurred in 2020. Other than that, same thing with that non-operating item that I noted on the last page for the water fund. In 2019, the sewer fund had that similar activity as well. And then in 2020, you'll see that non-operating expenses line item of about $164,000. That there was a transfer out to the 2008 bond fund. All right, so cash for those two funds really gradually increasing over the past 4 or 5 years. For the water fund, sat at just under $2.2 million, 12/31/20, and then sewer fund at just under $2.6 million there. All right, last couple pages here. So assets for the city as a whole, fairly similar to 2019, with the exception of an increase in capital assets, and that's just due to the capital purchases that were done in 2020, the fire truck, SCBA, and turnout gear, Highway 25 trail, and then some streets overlay that occurred in 2020. Other than that, assets sat pretty similar, so nothing too notable other than that. And then on the flip side, liabilities, city's overall liabilities decreased by about $520,000 from 2019 to 2020, primarily due to changes in debt. Other than that, there was some payoff of construction payables from some overlap from that 2018 project yet, so that had some decreases in that current liabilities bar. Other than that, nothing too notable there. It's always good when your liabilities decrease, of course. And then here we actually just present the debt for the city as a whole, which sat at about 5.45 million at 12/31/20. So obviously most notable activity is the issuance of those 2020 refunding bonds, which refunded 2011 and then 2012, which was previously the 2008 debt there. Other than that, just paying off debt as the city has been doing over the past number of years. Any questions at all?
I do have a question.
Yeah, yep.
We were talking, one of the comments was internal controls.
Yes,
And
yep.
I know we have a very small staff.
Yeah, yep.
Other than having two people involved and
Yeah.
is there some computer app or something that would
Well, we actually
assist with that?
very recently we've talked to Sarah about this. You know, limiting access controls and things like that. You know, the potential to bring on another person would help. Right now, that finding is considered a material weakness, which is the worst of the two. So you have a material weakness or a significant deficiency. There's potential there of adding another person or changing some of those access controls as well, where we could drop that down to a significant deficiency.
Explain that.
So if we can segregate the duties just a bit more, basically the control of the assets, you know, and the access to the computer program that is used by the city, then we can, you know, kind of mitigate the risk there basically, and then that would drop that finding down, which would then obviously look a lot better in the report than a material weakness.
Yeah, because I think we have a great staff, but I know in, you know, there's problems all the time.
Yep, yeah, yep. And honestly, to fully eliminate segregation of duties, you have to have, you know, 5 to 6 accounting staff, which obviously isn't always feasible. But like I said, we have the potential to drop that down to significant deficiency as well. And we've had some conversations with Sarah, and also we're going to kind of work with her to, you know, segregate things a little bit better, so that can, you know, potentially drop that finding down or at least improve things. Does that kind of help?
The plan is to do that this year?
Yeah, I'll let you take that.
So, you know, we have the discussion, and we will have it again this budget cycle about changing to a monthly water and sewer billing cycle and adding staff to do that. In addition, that is one of the items that I'm working on with the auditors to leverage that ability also to improve upon our other segregation of duties. Because I do feel it's important for the city to always be looking at ways to improve and make sure we have as best of a situation as we can with our small staff. So in addition with that conversation about that transition to monthly water sewer billing, adding a staff member, we can also make some improvements in this area.
Anything else that I can answer?
Any other questions for her from anybody? As usual, I think you people did a real good job.
Yes, and Sarah and her team also, I have to thank them, because the remote audit process obviously is not always, you know, completely easy, but they make it go really smooth, always getting us stuff timely, and that helps a lot. So we really appreciate that.
They also did a very good job.
Yes.
We thank you both.
Thank you.
We will now move on to the purchase of the piece of land for expanding our industrial park. There are 4 items here, and I will put them all under one motion.
Can I?
Oh, Sarah.
I just want to clarify, we have a couple, with this split that would have happened, we wanna be clear, so I would ask that any motion be contingent that staff, make sure those legal descriptions are accurate and recorded properly, because we're taking a big piece, we're splitting it, and then we're recording, you know, a document that affects both. We just wanna be very clear that we're, accurate in our legal descriptions and describing all those properties. So I'll just ask it be contingent that staff, determine the correct legal descriptions are filed with the documents.
Can we get a motion to approve under the purchase of that land, the contract for deed, farm lease option agreement, memorandum of purchase option, contingent upon the staff making the final recorded agreements and accurate legal descriptions?
So moved.
I have a question before you.
The motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion?
My question is, does that take in the additional land that we were talking about? This
Nope.
is the
This is only the 52 acres.
parcel that we're looking at.
Yep, there is a separate agenda item under the wastewater fiber project to address that other piece of property.
Second the motion.
Yeah, motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. We will now move on to open forum. And for this open forum, anyone that has a concern or problem, we ask that you please come up to the podium, state your name and address, and then try to, in a 2 to 3 minute slot, please let us know any concerns or problems you might have.
Joshua Butts, 420 Norway Drive. Recently I was, mailed a ordinance violation that May 7th, it was brought to the police department's attention that a vehicle was parked on the grass. Well, it's not a vehicle, it's a trailer. And since then, I have put a hard surface down. But apparently, that hard surface does not meet the requirements of certain people, I want to say. Reading this, it does not state how big the hard surface has to be. It states that the hard surface has to be underneath the vehicle or trailer. I meet that requirement. Now, I don't know if you want to say discriminated or what do you want to call it, but I've been approached about this how many times, and it's getting sickening. I put down a hard surface, it's concrete. The tires are underneath it, the trailer tongue is underneath it, all the concrete is connected to each other. It's not just one paver or anything underneath the tire or anything like that. I keep my yard clean, grass is clipped, there's no weeds sticking on it. If you want, I can go over several addresses that people are in violation, but yet I keep on being brought up, and it's getting sickening. If you want to go with it, fine, go with it. But I'm going to have the lawyers involved too, and it's going to come down to the city of Foley and the police department that I'm going to bring this upon. So if you want to tow my trailer or whatever, do it. But if you're going to tow my trailer, go around Foley and tow everyone else's crap that's on. All right? Not just mine. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
My name is Brittany Winkleman. My address is 268 Balsam Drive. Kind of to take along Josh's comment about the hard surface, I have been approached now multiple times. Apparently there are multiple properties that have brought my property into a concern with the hard surface of the crushed concrete. So basically when it's wet, it is a couple good rains, it's basically concrete. There's no runoff, it's not connected to the street, It is a hard surface, and we spent a lot of time and energy and money putting in this surface. And I'm also being mailed an ordinance stating that I can no longer have this and that I have to spend a lot more time and energy and money again to remove it. I am new to town. I moved in August. Nobody made me aware of this ordinance, and I just wanted to state my opinion that I agree with Josh. I keep my yard looking nice. It's a work in progress, obviously, because I moved into this house and it was a mess, and I'm trying to make it better. I don't plan to live there forever, but I'm not gonna continue to spill a bunch of time and energy into something that looks nice and isn't causing any issues. When I walk around town or drive around town, I see all these other properties that have the same exact thing that I do, but it looks a mess. It causes me some distress and anger. So just to take along with Josh's comment, I think I feel a little discriminated against too, being told that my property has been brought up multiple times and now I'm on a strict deadline to remove it. So that is all.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would wish to stand up and speak? No one else coming up. We will move on to department reports. Police Department, Katie McMillan.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, you received a stat report for the month of May. Has been our busiest month that I have ever seen. We had 397 calls to service. And things to point out, suspicious activity, we had 26. Welfares and medicals were down to 14. Criminal damage to property, harassment. Harassment was actually down, which surprised me because I've been in the school the last few weeks and that seems like that's all I've been dealing with. The criminal damage to property is up, and assisting other agencies are also up. And as you can see, miscellaneous is 95. That is due to the tobacco and liquor license checks that's accumulated in there, and record checks from other departments. We did do a lot of TZD enforcement. We had 30.75 hours worth. Any questions on the stat report before I go into anything else?
Any questions for her?
Okay. Next thing I have some fun things or good things to look at. Bicycle safety rodeo, we have over 70 kids pre-registered already. That is most ever that we have pre-registered. So we're looking forward to that. Compost site, that dumping that happened there, we have issued citations to an individual for the dumping. And now for the citation for illegal dumping, it's a petty misdemeanor, so citation was issued. So we got the criminal side done, and I haven't had time yet to reach out to Sarah or the city attorney, but then if the city wants to, if the next step is if the city wants to pursue a civil suit against this individual also. But I haven't had time to reach out to Sarah on that part.
Could we,
What does the citation amount to?
A petty misdemeanor, I looked at it earlier, but I cannot recall. I do apologize. I do not recall what it is. It's a citable offense, so he does not have to appear in court. He can just pay the fine and it'll be closed out.
So is there any way that we can accumulate the time and hours that the city had in there to clean up and include that in the citation?
That would all be through the civil court.
So-
You can charge up to, like, I believe it's 4 times of the amount of damage that there was for the statute.
I guess that would be a question of the city council. Do you want us to pursue that option? It would require some time on our city attorney as well.
Do we know what the damage is?
What do you put for dumpster?
Do we have to haul the stuff away, or
Yeah,
okay, so we've got,
$1,000 or,
did we contract?
I don't know if we'll have 1,000, but
okay. Dumpster was what, how many, few hundred?
dumping was what, 200 some, the TVs were 90, staff time, you know, whatever it was, loader, truck, you know, you're gonna have a few hours, if you bill that out at rate, you're gonna be in the upper hundreds, probably.
Cause this should amount to more than slapping the hands, like most, citations, of this entity require, it should come to some summable amount of, punishment of some sort rather than just a petty misdemeanor.
Would you like us to get you those numbers? I mean, just understand our attorney is not cheap either.
Well, maybe we should inflict that in the charge also.
We
Absolutely.
can.
I believe there's, after we came off a cleanup day, there's no excuse for it. And now we got time and effort into it. I think we should go back and get that time and effort from the person, cause
Absolutely.
they know it was wrong. And ignorance is no excuse for not knowing the law.
Was this a local person, or did somebody come from somewhere else and gone?
A different city.
I'm sorry?
He came from a different city.
Came from a different city. See, I think we should take a stand on it, probably because I love the compost area and I use it all the time. But this is somebody that found a compost site that isn't policed and regulated like the Twin Cities. I know it's, you know, there's staff every time it's open. And I think we should spend money.
If that's the consensus of the council, we can come back with a proposal and some better numbers, if that's what you so choose. That's no problem.
We'll just see what the cost is.
And I think you include the prosecution fees.
They're checking into it.
Staffing wise, we are looking okay right now, even with the, resignation of Dylan Kleinsasser. Lately, I've been picking up a lot of the open shifts or the, towards the extra PPD shifts. I've been doing a lot of that. We may need to look at hiring another one to replace Officer Kleinsasser. But then we have one on the list, so then they'll come to if the council feels that we should open up again. But I think as of right now with the schedule that I just got done through the month of October, if everyone stays and no one leaves us, we should be good. But I do know that one officer is being backgrounded by another agency too.
And I know you have, a minimum requirement for working, is it one shift a month or what? I forget what you said.
The part-timers are required to work 2 shifts a month.
Okay, and is that being enforced and is that working out okay?
There is one officer who I've been trying to get onto the schedule more.
Okay.
But everyone else is picking up a lot. Now the fun one, the parking ordinance and storage, to go off of what they said up at the open forum. A lot of the people, the letters that I sent out, let's just look at the month of May, there was 41 ordinances. Those, 4 of them were the garbage or your basic nuisance, 15 were your trailers, and 21 were your tall grass. So there's a lot more tall grass than the trailers. 98% of all of them are compliant. We send them a letter, they comply, they move it, they prove their surface as needed. I work with everyone that I send a letter to. If they call me and say, what do I need to do to be compliant? You know, I talk with them, I go out there if I can, and work with them. I ask them what timeline works for them. And so, the strict timeline, it's basically, I work with them on their timeline. One individual has until July 1st, so, to get in compliance. So I don't believe that's strict. It's a date that we came up with that asked if that would be most reasonable, and they said yes. I mean, I'm just doing what council has directed me to do, is to enforce it. I mean, yes, we get our ears full when we do it, and I mentioned that before. So, because again, I'm enforcing what council has directed me to do. For that one, Sarah forwarded you an email in regards to the one parking surface that did not constitute the definition of parking surface. Looking for your direction on what to do with that one. Because the attorney said it does not meet the definition of a parking surface.
We have been battling this parking and storage ordinance for quite some time. I would like each member of the council to give their opinion, short opinion, on what they feel. Are we gonna go enforce everything, or are we just gonna drop the ordinance?
And do keep in your mind that there are, like I said, 98% of people have complied. So there are a lot of people that have spent thousands of dollars to comply to this ordinance.
Jeff?
Well, sitting on the planning commission, when we created this ordinance, we looked at every definition and tried to get as much input as we could on how to make this feasible for everybody. We had one meeting when we finalized everything, and I think we had maybe 10, 12 people there. The people that were at the meeting agreed with where we were going and the direction we were going with this. Now tonight, we had two people out of everybody in our city, and as the chief says, we had 98% compliant. Do the math. The reason why we have ordinances is for the 1%. The rest of the people don't have a problem with it. I think we keep the ordinance and we enforce it.
Rosalie?
I would like to keep the ordinance. I'm also on the planning commission. I think, our ordinance is not really out of line with, cities in Minnesota and cities across the country. We're not doing something super here. The other thing I would say is that, there is an easier mechanism for enforcement that our attorney did not offer to us, but Minneapolis and Duluth have changed their charter so you can just issue a parking ticket. It would be a lot cheaper to enforce. It doesn't appear we have a big enforcement problem.
Just to clarify, we are not a charter city, we are a statutory city, so that is not an option afforded to us.
That's not an option.
Correct. We're a statutory city.
I think we should explore that with our legislature.
Gary?
But I'm in favor of it.
I have to agree we need an ordinance. I don't know when all this took place. This all started with some finger pointing, and it just got worse. There's gravel out there that's been there since the early 1900s. Nothing's ever been done to fix that. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but they're not in compliance with the ordinance and everybody else that's being attacked. I don't want to create a burden on those people that probably can't afford to fix that, but they're there. I agree we have to do something. I don't know if we have to modify the ordinance. A lot of people don't understand the aggregate system, what can, what can't be. Some get it down, now they got down, they got teared up. This is getting to really be a pain, and unfortunately, there's some people that decide to move. They're not gonna put up with the crap that they can't.
So you
I'm not saying abandoning it, modify it to where we can make it work better than it's working,
Jack?
if that's possible.
I'm reading a subdivision of this one, and I think the individual at 420 Norway is in compliance with how it reads in my understanding. And we directed the police to take that individual to court last fall, apparently never got done, and now here we are being asked the same question. We already said, take the individual to court. So 7, 8, 9 months later, you're asking for permission to take him to court again. We gave you direction in the fall
and he became in compliance after that. He came in compliance before we had to take him to court, and the council would be, the city would be the ones that would take it to court.
Well, this definitely needs addressed as far as what we're gonna go forward with in the future on this.
Can I just,
Kate,
just one comment? When we passed the ordinance, so the year we passed the ordinance, any existing class 5 gravel, that's considered illegal non-conforming. So we cannot force that compliance. They have the right to legally maintain that. It's when they want to expand or do anything else that then the ordinance requirements do come into play. So we have to allow those existing class 5 gravel driveways that were there prior to the establishment of the ordinance.
But
That's
all these
considered
being prosecuted, are they gonna understand that?
No, and I completely understand what you're saying with that, but
Yeah.
I just wanna make sure that that's clear. It's
Yeah,
a legal
I-
non-conforming.
They're grandfathered in, basically.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah, but that's gonna create a problem.
do,
Oh, are you gonna say something?
that's what I was planning on. As far as I'm concerned, we've got a few bad apples out there, but we have to enforce the ordinance. Because if we don't, I'm afraid of what could happen. And I'd like to see the ordinance enforced. Now, I'd like to have a vote as to what the council has feelings on it. Those in favor of enforcing the ordinance?
Nay.
Okay, that's 2.
I'm,
Those against redoing or dropping the ordinance?
Modification, yes. I don't wanna drop the ordinance.
Well, we've got 3 votes to keep the ordinance and enforce it.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna, we will enforce the ordinance. They can, oh,
Do we want this to come back to the planning commission one more time? But I know how we feel about it. The planning commission has spent a lot of time on this, and we looked at every opportunity to make it easier for everybody. I don't know if we have to go back and look at it.
Mark?
Can I just go on the record? I think it should go back. Right now, we're not enforcing the ordinance. You guys allow campers in the backyard. It says you cannot have a camper in the backyard. That is half your trouble. Change the ordinance. I don't care for campers in the backyard. Change it. Thank you. Because technically, all those people are in violation.
Wasn't this on the planning commission for next week?
It is on the planning commission. It wouldn't be Monday, it'd be the following Monday, the 14th. But the planning commission's been very clear, and we've actually talked about that as well at the planning commission, because enforcement's been an issue.
What
I'm not
we
saying
will,
it's not a valid point, though.
what we will do is we will table this until our next meeting. And they have the council meeting on it, or the planning commission meeting on it next week. And maybe Gary, you, or anybody else that can make that planning commission go down and talk to them and help see if we can reword some of the ordinance. And then we will vote on it in our July meeting. As of right now, Katie, we just won't progress any further till after we find out what's gonna happen.
could I ask how many cases are up for enforcement? Is it 2 or is it more?
For what, did I hear?
If
You mean
were-
enforcement, like they're not complying?
Yeah,
There's 2 of them I'm working with yet, and then one that would be, what would you forget?
the one that,
One would go, if possible, to court if you choose. Council is the one who chooses to take it to court. I just bring to you and tell you they're not complying.
okay. So we're talking about 1 or 2 people.
Is there anything else, Katie, that you have?
After a citation, again, what is the time limit and what they got to meet the requirement?
You mean after they get a letter?
Yes,
After I send them a letter, I usually give them, depends on what it is. I view, like, okay, if they just have to move a trailer, if they want to put in a surface, I give them 1.5 to 2 weeks or so, you know, and I figure in the Pony Express, so it's probably closer to the 2 weeks. And then I always put in there too, if you need, you know, reach out to me if you need additional, that's in the letter usually.
are there a few people coming to the city asking or whatever they're doing as far as aggregate is permissible or not? Or are they just going out and assuming they're doing the right thing?
We send out many copies of the ordinances.
Okay.
We do get calls, and we do explain it to a lot of people. We do have a number of people, though, that do not ask questions, that aren't aware. That is partly what we're trying to do with that flyer you have there. It is not something that we regularly do, that we send out a copy of all the ordinances to our new residents. We try to communicate stuff on Facebook and try to get them connected that way. But, you know, it is something we're continuing to work on. You know, we hope people will call if they're not certain about something, but that's not always the case.
Anything else for Katie? City engineer John Halter's not here. Jared's here.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. I won't take up too much of your time tonight. I don't really have anything. I just want to update you on the Trunk Highway 23 project, that it's still getting reviewed by the state. Design is done, and we're waiting for comments from the state right now. So that is all I have. If there's anything from you.
Any questions for him? We'll move to Public Works and Fire, Mark Patkus.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, good evening. Keep moving along. Update on the pool, they're about a week behind on the coping. I think I mentioned that last time. It's all tore out. Hopefully tomorrow they'll start restoration on replacing the coping, and their hope is to be done this week. You know, we had planned on opening June 9th, next Wednesday. I think that date's a little bit in jeopardy. I'm still hoping it'll be someday next week, you know, later in the week. The guys have all agreed if we gotta do something this weekend or whatever, one day they will, so. We'll keep you once we know that more. Just quick thing on the manganese levels on the well, you all had, that goes, received that letter. We'll be meeting, Sarah and I will be meeting with the Department of Health on next Monday. And, just, you know, look at some remedies for that. It's a long-term solution, it's not a short-term. That goes back to tests that was conducted in January and February of this year. So no action needs to be taken on this time. All in all, I say very busy right now. The only thing I have is the 2 items in your packet. We had in this year's CIP installation of our own salt shed down behind the gray storage shed on 440 South Broadway. Greystone is in there. It's a Sourcewell state bid. I think it's time we, you know, go on our own. You know, the county's pretty much Rice and Sauk Rapids don't use any, you know, they guys don't share the salt anymore there, so I think it'd be good for the city to be on their own. And I say this price here, and I say I have in there also, you know, we gotta do soil borings, we gotta do, testing when they install it for wind load and all that, and blacktopping, so, you know, we'll be close to our 100 when we're done. So if you guys agree with that, any questions? Otherwise, can we get approval for that, please?
Any questions?
How long is that? What's the warranty on the?
The shed?
Yeah. Or how long do they give you? Is it like a 5-year on the tarp? 10-year?
It was in here, and I apologize.
I know, I looked at it before and I can't remember.
Yeah,
There is a warranty though with that.
there's a
I'm
warranty. Jack, I apologize, I don't know that.
Yeah.
I think this is the same brand or the sister of what the county has up there, Sauk Rapids.
I think you just remember when we talked to him at the rodeo a couple years
Yeah.
ago.
That goes back, we've been talking about for several years, and we moved it around this year, being we didn't get the sweeper, we moved this up, is why came up this year ahead of time. Any other questions?
I motion to, purchase this building or whatever. How do we need this motion made?
Second.
There's been a motion and seconded.
As presented, there we go.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It carries.
Other thing I had, we've been, keep talking about, getting a more aggressive maintenance program of the roads. I'd like to try a chip seal of that south far end of town. One reason I picked that area, if you guys ever drive that, the cross seams are all much bigger down there. I'm hoping with the crack filling, I think that road's gonna have more trouble. So, I'm gonna start, I'd like to every year do an area like this as we do budgets, whatever we can afford, I think we have hoping for 50 next year too, but just do sections every other year, every year. And I'd like to go with the crack sealing, and so it's the two prices together, 45,000. With Allied Blacktop was the low bid of the two bids. You have a second bid there for.
That was all covered under budget?
We had 50,000 in this year's budget for seal coating.
When was that put in, Mark? That's just one lift on there, right?
Yeah, base wear. About 2003. He looked at it and said that's a very good I didn't know. I know talking to some people said that's a little old. They feel that's a good candidate down there, so I think we try it. And eventually I'd like to get the east side all done in a year or two, and these others.
And that's crack fill, seal.
Crack
combination.
filled, and then granite chip seal.
Yeah.
They oil it, they granite chip it, pack it, sweep it up later.
Anyone want to make a proposal or a motion on that?
I'll make that motion. We approve, Allied Blacktop quote.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Would that still be this year?
Yeah, one reason Allied bid cheap, they're doing Malacca's, and so they'll probably come in June and do ours right away. They'll be in Malacca doing for Gary over there. So that's how they wondered I went with them.
There be any correction in the manholes also?
Down there?
Down there is no problem.
Well, there's so many, I don't know where they're all at.
I don't have any other thing for, I'll keep it moving for street or for public works or fire unless you have anything for me.
Anybody have any further questions?
Otherwise, feel free to get a hold of me any other time.
Administration, Sarah Brunn.
I just I put it in your packet, the garbage rate contract adjustment, that's per the contract, there's nothing we can do about it, but you have those rates. And we also are working with the county at looking at a housing study countywide, so I'll continue to work for that and push for that, for the entire county and for the city of Foley. But I just anything else you have for me, that's fine. We do have people, I guess, waiting for us at the joint planning board meeting, so, we wanna move it along?
Any old business update on the wastewater?
I'll take this one. I will ask the council, if they are interested, we can purchase that parcel for $7,500. If the council so chooses, I would ask for a motion to, proceed with the purchase agreement on that item. And that is the parcel that we discussed at our last session.
Can I get a motion to approve that?
So,
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We're up to new business. And then we'll move on to we'll have to close. We have to close the regular council meeting to discuss a bid.
Stevens?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
We will now reopen the regular council meeting. Do I have a motion to
I
adjourn?
mean, we can
So
use that
moved.
fill
Oop.
somewhere. Holy shit.
what time is it? We gotta call it.
6:33. We reconvene the regular city council meeting. We got a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting closed.
You joint planning board members, you gotta go straight there, no detouring to the Gilman store or anything.
That's okay, I brought
Lock it up, yeah.
Yeah, I'll make sure
Sarah, lock it up.
I'm not gonna be at the plaza.